So if any of you have heard me speak before, a lot of times there are times and stuff I make you guys do. Guess what? Tonight is no different. So not hard, not difficult, stuff that you can help me with, but it will require a little bit of interaction on your part. So the great thing is we got a kind of a group over here, we got kind of a group over here. So I've got a question I want to ask you. We are going to be talking about hunger, and if you want a title, I sometimes have titles, and tonight's title is The Anatomy of Hunger. The Anatomy of Hunger. And so as we start tonight, I want you to think about this question. So think about a time when you were really hungry. I mean, more hungry than normal. Think about a time when you were really hungry. Okay, some people already have it. Great. Super. So what I want you to turn around, we'll talk with somebody for just a minute about what the circumstance was and why you were that hungry, and then what you did about it. So a time when you were hungrier than normal, why you were that hungry, and then what you did about it. Go and talk with somebody near you about that. Ready, set, go. You talked about it. What were some stories? You mentioned, Chris, you said, that was me. What happened? Tell me about it.
I got this morning, I was hungry.
You got more hungry than normal?
No, I mean, I'm always that hungry, I guess.
Okay. All right, cool. So how about a time when you were unusually hungry? Who has a story then when you were like unusually hungry? Yeah.
Time to be unusually hungry is when you've already finished a meal and remain hungry.
Okay. So she's talking about, okay, I had a meal and I'm like, still hungry. Okay. Yeah, sometimes that happens. Hey, Dave, you've got one.
I was on a liquid diet for 10 weeks.
Wow.
And I went immediately to Legends Farm Bread Cafe and had it.
Wow. All right. I bet you couldn't eat very much.
I ate as much as I wanted, which was a lot.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yes.
Drunken stomach, no.
All right. Yeah, one quick one. Go.
I took what's called a colon cleanse.
Yep.
For a week. It was this liquid with this stuff.
Yeah.
You mix it and it turns to blue if you don't eat it.
Right. That's brutal.
Me and a lady friend went out and got snickerdoodles and just chewed them up.
Wow. Okay. I was trying to think about, so when was the time that I was hungry? And I could pinpoint it February 20th. February 20th was the day that we moved to our new house. And the movers were supposed to show up at 8 o'clock. And they were going to load stuff up, and we were all going to move. And they didn't show up. So they showed up at 10 and they said, we'll probably get everything packed up about an hour and a half real quick. No problem. 3.5 hours later, house is packed up. And it's like, well, we have a storage unit, so we got to go to the storage unit. So we loaded all that up. By this time, it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we'd been loading stuff, and I was just super hungry. I had Lydia with me, and she'd been really helpful in loading. And so on the way to the new house, we took a detour through McDonald's and, took care of things really well there. So we're going to find out now, because this is the anatomy of hunger, we're going to find out what really happens to our bodies when we're hungry. So we're going to watch this right here.
Once upon a time, some psychologists took 2 patients and fed them lunch. 10 minutes or so later, the patients were offered lunch again and happily ate lunch number 2. Again, 10 minutes later, the patients were offered lunch and just as happily ate their 3rd meal. These patients had severe amnesia. They had no recollection of just having a meal, so they were willing to accept all the TV dinners of turkey, peas, potatoes, and applesauce. The question of when and how much you eat has to do with a whole lot more than how much food is in your stomach. The control group in that study politely declined all of the meals after their first lunch. Memory for what you've recently consumed is a big contributor to beginning a meal. Your brain also controls hunger by telling your body when it needs energy. Your brain only takes up about 2% of your body weight, but it chews up 20% of the energy you get from your daily food intake. Your brain tries to make sure all this energy is even, so that the energy coming into your body through kilojoules you eat is the same as the energy you expend moving around. This is known as energy homeostasis. When your body has a low battery and needs more energy, hormones come from your fat cells, certain organs, and the gastrointestinal tract to tell your brain it's time for a snack. Inside your brain, the hypothalamus picks up on these peripheral signals, and a bunch of appetite-stimulating neurons travel out to tell other areas of your brain that you're really hungry. And what follows, well, for me anyway, is thoughts about tacos.
All right. So that's kind of what happens when we're hungry. So in a nutshell, just to sum that up, our body burns energy. So that day that I was moving, burned a lot of energy. And at that point, when the tipping point came and more energy was burned than I had left to consume, my body said, hey, you're hungry. But I didn't know it yet. So I have these little hormone things that are in the fat cells, and they came up and they went in my brain. And then there were these neurons that fired. And then my brain finally knew, hey, you're hungry. You need to get something to eat. So you think about, okay, Jonathan, why are you going through this? There's actually a point, we're gonna come back to it later. So if our body is sending those kind of messages that we're hungry and we don't eat, what happens to us physically? So the body says, I'm hungry, and you don't eat. Cranky, yeah. Jason shares that like every week that he's cranky and he doesn't eat. What else? Anything else happen? You wither away and die. Yeah, if you went long enough, to its extreme, you might wither away and die. If you didn't, so you get cranky. You could wither away and die. Sometimes your child comes to you if you have a kid, and they say, Mom, Dad, I have a stomach ache. Well, that could be any of about 15 million things, but sometimes it's because they are hungry. Exactly right. That's why they're hungry. So is hunger a bad thing? No, not necessarily. Hunger's not a bad thing at all. So what does hunger do for us? If it's not bad, what does hunger do? What's the purpose of hunger? What'd you say? Okay, it tells us we need to eat. What else is the purpose of being hungry?
Give us more energy.
Yeah. Okay, hey, you need more energy. I need some more stuff in those fat cells that you just burned off. Yeah, you need more energy. So, sometimes it just kind of brings things back into balance. So you've got that part. And on some level, though, is hunger enjoyable? Okay, Dave's saying no. We got a yes up here. Sometimes when you knew, let me pick on you for a second, Dave. Dave, when you're driving to the prime rib dinner and you were salivating, ready to eat that, were you were kind of happy that was going to come, right? Yeah. Now that was the tail end of hunger because you knew there was something coming.
I disagree with you.
Okay, go ahead.
I think the psychological anticipation of something that you're going to eat, which is enjoyable, is psychological.
Yep.
But the body, which is physical,
Yep.
reaches out for hunger for the need of nourishment.
All right. Good distinction.
It's something that you psychologically don't even like, you will eat to nourish your physical being.
All right, so there is, right, we've layered another layer of complexity here about, desires and cravings and things like that, and you're right, it's all in the brain. In fact, where I stopped the video, if we kept going, that's exactly what they talk about, how cravings and all those things are really in the brain, have nothing to do with our physical hunger. But, when we cross over to hunger being enjoyable, maybe that's a little bit of psychological, but, we're gonna take this topic of hunger now, and we're gonna transfer it over to the idea of being spiritually hungry. So, what does it mean to be spiritually hungry? What do you think that means, to be spiritually hungry? Any guesses? Any ideas? Spiritually hungry. Thought?
A feeling psychologically that there's no meaning to even being alive. Okay,
so there might be a psychological part where it's like, what am I living for? Okay.
Yeah.
So in a spiritual sense, there could be a portion of that could exist. Is there such a thing as spiritual hunger? Actually, there is. So if we look in the Bible here, we've got a verse here that shows that hunger is a biblical concept. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. So that, we see that there is actually a place where hunger is blessed. And then in Psalms we see, a snippet here, and the hungry he has filled. And so both of these are actually not referring to physical hunger at all. They're both referring to spiritual. We'll actually come back to both of these verses a little bit later. So some other words that God uses in the Bible to talk about hunger are things like longing and desire and yearning. These are all synonyms, if you will, in the Bible for hunger. And so if it's really funny that Jason, during his prayer time for communion, referenced this verse. It says, "One thing I have asked of the Lord, and that I shall seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to meditate in his temple." So that verse talks about one thing I have asked, that I shall seek. So again, two other words here that are illustrative of hunger: asking, seeking, longing, desiring, yearning. All of these things go along with hunger. So hunger is a response to something. So here was the image that we had, from the physical. When we talked about that, this is the first part, where the hormones are released to the brain to carry the message that we are hungry. So, the hunger is in response to something. So in our spirit, that's absolutely true as well. We are drawn to God by his Spirit. Okay? When we first came to Christ, for those of us who are saved, we were drawn to Christ by his Spirit. So this verse seems so easy, but this verse boggles my mind. We love him because he first loved us. Now, how many of you have heard that before? Yeah, not that uncommon. We loved him because he first loved us. So, if we look at that verse, who initiated the relationship? God did. God initiated the relationship. It was his idea. What did we have to do then to earn his love? Nothing. We didn't have to do anything to earn his love. He loved us first. It was his choice. So what do we have to do to prove ourselves so that he'll love us more? Love only goes so far. Come on. Don't we have to prove ourselves to God so he'll love us more?
No.
The word is more if it's unconditional, which is what he offers.
He does offer us unconditional love. So, here's the analogy that I thought of. If you've ever been on or seen in a movie or anything like this, a first date. So you have the situation of the first date, and you decide you're going to go out to dinner, and so you go out to dinner, and let's see, let me have this here. So you're out to dinner, and you're sitting down, and you're probably not at McDonald's at this point. Maybe, you want to impress her. You want to impress her, right, Daisy? You're not going to take her to McDonald's, at least Burger King. She can have her way there. So, we're first date, and hands are sweaty. Gosh, you're there, and do I look okay? Okay, yeah, smell okay, and then maybe you're at a place where they have a menu, and so it's like, okay, I'm not gonna get the 22-ounce steak. That would look bad. Gonna go with the 6-ounce. Okay, so you order something appropriate, and she's doing the same thing, ordering something appropriate, and then you try to have this conversation. So, breathe much? You just talk about ridiculous things. You don't even know, and you're trying to perform. You're trying to look your best, and that's sometimes what a first date looks like. It's about performance. But with God, like it says here, we love him because he first loved us. So we absolutely do not have to perform. There is zero performance with God. We don't have to try harder, do anything to have him love us more, because, as we said, his love is unconditional. And so that's something that I'm still trying to get from here to here, is that, you know, this unconditional love is a huge thing, and what does that even really mean? So as we continue on, that's the first part of kind of the part where the hormones are released and it's going up to the brain and getting ready to signal that we're hungry. You know, we're drawn by the Spirit of God. So we look at the next part, and you know, hunger is in response to something. Here's the part where we see kind of the neurons firing, letting us know that we're hungry, and this is the part in James. Again, another one of these verses that seems so simple. James 4:8a, here it says, "Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you." So first we have the part where God loved us first. We love him because he first loved us. Now we see, okay, there's some response here. We're going to draw near to God because those neurons are finding, hey, I'm hungry. Well, what am I going to do? I'm going to draw near to God. So we're going to draw near to God, and he draws near to us. So that's what hunger produces. It produces a desire for us to draw near to God. So think back a couple of weeks ago. If you look at the calendar here, you can see the last 2 weeks, we're at the 31st. Anybody here, either one of those 2 days, 17th or 21st, or 24th, sorry, can't read. 17th or 24th. Anybody here? Jason was. That's good because he spoke with us Sundays. Dave was here one of the weeks. Chris was here. Okay. Yeah. A few people were here. Sure. A good number of us were here. If we think back to these 2 weeks, I mean, something changed. Something changed right here. And something continued right here. I mean, if you were here, the 17th, I mean, we got to the end of service, and Jason called for people to come up for communion, you know, and it wasn't just, I'm going to go have communion now, maybe catch some prayer. No, it was like, I mean, everybody just went for communion. Everybody wanted prayer. People didn't want to leave. I mean, we were worshiping the Lord, and we were just, the Lord was just really, really heavy on us at that time. And then last week, you know, Jason was preaching again, and we get to the end, and we're talking about, we've talking about sin and how we don't want to be okay with our sin, how we don't want to, if I had my notes here, I could find the exact words, but we don't want to be okay with sin in our lives. We want it to be something that we certainly stand against and reject. And through that time, during ministry time at the end, the Lord just moved again. I mean, there was just such a heaviness of the Spirit of the Lord here, and people were responding and worshiping the Lord again. And what happened those 2 weeks was a response to hunger. You know, we were hungry for more of the Lord, and it was just at a different level. It's to explain in the natural would not do it justice because you can't, but there was just a different level of hunger for the Lord. And during those times, God drew near. You know, we loved him because he first loved us. And then, you know, the second part of that, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Man, that's what happened. God showed up, and God really met with us during those times. And you know, as I prayed about that and thought about that, I mean, I think a lot of it is because he responds to hunger. And there was just an elevated level of hunger within our body here, within our lives, and I believe starting with Jason. And the great thing about Jason, I'm going to tell you something about Jason right now. Jason's messed up right now. Jason's messed up in a good way. And what I mean by that is God has got a hold of his heart, and God is just doing this. You know, a little bit right now. He's just kneading it and saying, oh, you know what, Jason, I want to form you into this. Oh, well, let's do this. I want to. And Jason's like, oh, man. But it's not, those aren't bad cries. Those aren't bad groans. You know, sometimes it talks in the scripture in the New Testament about praying with groanings and things that can't even be uttered. And that's what's going on in Jason's life right now. Is God's just moving in him, working in him, and Jason's getting hungry. And you know what? That hunger is infectious. And I believe, in part, because of the hunger that God is putting in his heart and elevating that level, it makes us hungry. How many of you, and this is the psychological part that you talked about, how many of you have walked by maybe a place to eat and you look, maybe you look in the window or you just smell the scent coming from it, it's like, oh, I'm hungry. Oh my gosh. I don't know what that is, but I got to go order that, and I got to order like 3 of them, like yesterday, because I need that. I mean, that's kind of what's going on in the spiritual realm here. You know, Jason has got a real spiritual sense of hunger in his life, and not saying that, and through that hunger has become contagious. It's like, oh, I don't know what's going on there, but I want some of that. And I think through that, each of us have gotten hungrier, and the Lord has drawn near and has really responded and said, guess what? You're hungry? I'm going to fill you. You know, I'm going to continue to fill you and to provide for what you're hungry for. So we're going to look here in talking about response to hunger. Here's the whole verse in Psalms 107:9. So one of the ways that he responds, if you look at the bottom, it says satisfaction. For he satisfied the thirsty soul and the hungry soul. He filled with what is good. So as, you know, thirsty, hungry, you know, again, yearning, it's all in there together. So he satisfied the thirsty soul and the hungry soul. He is filled with what is good. God desires to do that. It's like, if you're hungry, guess what? I'm going to fill you. And I'm not just going to fill you with junk. I'm not going to fill you with spiritual Cheetos. I'm not going to fill you with junk food. I'm going to fill you with things that are good. Because that's what I have for you. I have for you things that are good. If we look at this verse in Matthew, you know, it even talks further about that idea. It says, you know, or which one of you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? Again, satisfaction. And it may not be, you know, sometimes we have an idea, oh, well, if the Lord came to me, this is what I would, this is my interpretation of what satisfaction would be. You know, let God define that. You know, let God define what satisfaction is, because he's going to know how to meet that hunger better than anybody else. But just like we see here, you know, even as those who are evil, you know, those of us in the flesh, yeah, guess what? My oldest daughter has a birthday coming up, July 2nd, and, you know, I know that one of the things that she wants for her birthday is a puppy. She wants a Shih Tzu puppy. And so, you know, if her birthday comes and she wakes up and it's time for us to exchange gifts, and I, you know, show up with a box turtle, and I name him Puppy, probably not going to fly, you know. Not going to, it'd be fun for me. I would enjoy that. It would be a lot of fun, but she wouldn't enjoy that a whole lot. So, you know, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give her, you know, a bad gift. You know, I'm going to give her a good gift. And so even as we know how to do that, of course we know how to do that, God says, let me be your Father and let me give you good gifts. Let me satisfy your hunger as only I can. So here's the other verse that we looked at earlier when we talked about hunger. Matthew 5:6. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. I want to pick on that last word a little bit, filled, because in other versions, if we look at this, look at the next part here, it says, they shall not only be filled. In the Amplified, it says, they shall be completely satisfied. And I thought, wow, that's a little stronger. They shall be completely satisfied. That's more than just filled. I mean, that's, you know, that's me coming to dinner on Tuesday night, and you know, I've got my entree and I've got my, you know, vegetable and whatever, and, you know, I eat dinner. Oh, you know what? I'm filled. Thank you. I'm satisfied. That's fine. No, completely satisfied. Whoa, that was amazing. That's the best dinner I've had. I mean, that's completely satisfied. But I looked it up. I did a little study on that word filled, on satisfied, and here's what the word actually means in the original Greek. It means gorged. Now, what I want you to do, those of you who have smartphones or some type of mobile device, I want you to pull it out right now. If you don't, have anything like that. You can hang out with somebody, look at their screen, whatever. What I want you to do, I want you to go to your search engine. That's okay. I want you to go to your search engine. I want you to look up the word gorged. We're gonna look up the definition of gorged here, and I have it up there so you can spell it, because I would misspell it myself. So pull out your phone, tablet, device, whatever you've got. Look it up. Now, you're going to find gorged as like this valley thing. That's not what I'm looking for. Don't go for the definition that talks about the, the geographical, lay of the land. We want the other one. So what are you finding for what gorged means? Just say it out. What things are you seeing?
Eat a large amount greedily.
Eat a large amount greedily. Okay. What other things are you finding for gorged? Any other ideas? Yeah.
I would think it would mean more than 100%.
More than 100%. That's a great definition. I like that. Other ideas? Gorged. What are you finding?
Was having a neck encircled by a collar.
Having a what?
Having a neck encircled by a collar.
Having a neck encircled by a collar. That's interesting. Probably not the application of gorge we're looking for. There's also a thing called the Royal Gorge in Colorado. Not really looking for that either. Not going for that. So yeah, completely satisfied, over 100%. Eating a large amount greedily, I think is what you came up with. I mean, another one is just completely stuffed. And if I think of it from a food sense, completely stuffed, I have to think of pasta, because the thing about pasta is once you eat it and you think you're full, what does pasta do inside of you? Expands, right. You have this plate of pasta and it's like you've eaten 6 pounds of pasta. So, you feel like you've been gorged. But I want to go off on that word a little bit, because that's the word that it means. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be gorged. I mean, they'll be completely filled. They'll be more than 100% filled. They will continue to eat and eat and eat. And maybe it's greedily, like you said, God, I want more of you. And you know what? That's not a greedy statement. That's perfectly okay for us to say, God, I want more of you. These last 2 weeks have been great, but God, I'm not satisfied. I want more. I've still got a hunger inside of me that isn't satisfied, and I know that you're the only one who can do it. So, Lord, I want to gorge myself on you. I want to see you take me to a place that is that abundance, that place of abundance. So in Matthew 7, we looked at the beginning of this a little earlier, but here's the tail end of Matthew 7. It says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door and it will be opened for you. For everyone. Say everyone. Everyone. I never do that, but I don't usually like it when people do that, but it worked this time. Let's try it again. Say everyone. Everyone. Yeah. Say bistro. Bistro. See, you guys will do anything. It's the person up here can say anything, and you guys will say kumquat. See, it happens. So let's go back. I don't know why I did that. It's just fun. So say everyone. For everyone who asks receives. Who here qualifies as everyone? Raise your hand if you're in the everyone crowd. Thank you. For everyone who asks receives, everyone, and the one who seeks finds, the one who knocks, it shall be opened. So, I mean, we've heard this verse before, but if we think about it in the context of hunger, if we think about it in the context of desiring the things of God, God, I'm hungry for you. God, I want what you have for my life. Then this verse makes a lot of sense. Ask, it will be given to you. God, I want more of you. He's going to be very pleased to answer that prayer. Lord, I seek you. I know that I will find you. Lord, I am knocking, and I know that you will open new doors for me, open areas that I haven't experienced, I haven't seen you in. So this is a very right prayer to pray, most certainly, because his responses we see there at the bottom, God meets our hunger with abundance. Not just that satisfaction level, that gorging level, that That level that is over 100%. I really like that. So, you know, as we move to this part, as we move to the next stage of what we're going to do here, so what's our response? As I was putting this together this week, God kind of gave me 3 levels of where we come in at. 3 levels of where we come in at. And so one of those is the level of activating our hunger. So sometimes, and we'll just be dead honest, there are times we're just not hungry. We're just not hungry for God. It's like, you know, life's okay, work's okay, life's okay, you know, I'm okay. Like things are going along. You know, I just don't have a hunger for God. But you know what? This is the first level. You know, God, make me hungry for you. If you're not hungry, that's okay. Because God wants to take you to a place of hunger. So that's the first place. You know, pray for a fresh revelation of God's love for us through Jesus to make us hungry. God, I'm not hungry right now, and I want to be. I want to be hungry before you. For those of us who are hungry, this is the second level of kind of place that we can respond to God. God, increase my hunger. I want to be even more hungry than I am. God, you know, I've been hungry, but I want more. I want to get to that gorge level. I've never been there before. I want to see what that's like. I want to understand what that means. God, take me to that place. You know, pray for the hunger to increase. Hunger is a good thing. You know what? If we pray that, God will absolutely do that. God will absolutely increase our hunger. He loves to give good gifts to his children. And then the third one I just sense from the Lord is get specific. You know, if you're at a place of hunger with the Lord and you say, you know, Lord, I'm hungry for you and here's my desire. You know, that whole thing about ask, seek, and knock that we saw earlier. You know, God, I'm hungry for you and I really want to see X happen in my life because, you know, I want to get closer to you. You know, he wants to completely satisfy us. He wants to gorge us. He wants us to be completely filled up in him.